how do you know if you're doing enough? Like, how do you know like that you're in that, range of not getting a lot of systemic fatigue, but fatiguing the places that you're trying to do?
Well, what does when you're systemically fatigued, like you can feel that, right? You can tell that your brain is all mush. You can't really focus. You just kind of feel that fatigue, right? Within your body. It maybe affects your sleep, things like that. When you're training the local muscle specifically, you shouldn't feel that systemic fatigue. Like you literally should be able to finish a workout and then you could, eat some post-workout food, whatever it is that you do, and get back on the computer, get back to work and almost feel like you didn't miss a beat. But as far as like whether you did enough, that's a good question because there is this kind of idea that more is better, even in the hypertrophy space. And a lot of this has changed in the last few years as more research has come out. Back in like 2016, 17, there was this whole volume is the primary driver of hypertrophy, meaning the more you do, the more muscle you gain type thing.
That's kind of always what I've heard. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that has kind of began to shift in the last year or two. And now there's this idea that mechanical tension is the number one driver of hypertrophy. And that essentially just means applying tension to your muscles. Like anything you do, like you pick up a pencil, there's some mechanical tension. It's just a lot less mechanical tension than there is if you pick up something that's heavy for you. But we use kind of like some subjective signs to determine if you're doing enough. And so one really good subjective sign that these are all, I think, important to note that by themselves, none of them mean anything for a number of reasons, but kind of collectively they do. So you can look at soreness. You can look at, whether your muscle is recovering in time for the next session. We see this a lot with legs where people, for whatever reason, I think it's because most leg movements tend to be lengthened overloaded, which means that the most tension of the movement is at the bottom where your muscle is lengthened. I can talk about that a little more later if we want. But essentially, we have soreness. We want to make sure that we are getting some mild level of soreness, but not so much that it becomes systemically fatiguing. Because you all know that feeling where you like can't even like get up off the toilet without having to like push off with two hands. That's too much soreness. So you want some. You want to know that you stimulated the muscle. You want some of what I would call post-session fatigue in the muscle. So like if you just train legs, then you go to walk up the stairs or down the stairs and you're like, whoa, that was super unexpected. Like post-session fatigue means you did a pretty good job of training your target muscle. You can look a little bit at what I would call like disruption in the in session. And so some people also look at pump, but I think pump and disruption can kind of both be linked together into like, hey, is the muscle that I'm working feeling like it's being worked?
Right.
Which is pretty simple. But I think using those subjective signs, and then as far as whether it's enough, like if you're recovering in time for your next session always, and you're improving week to week, then it's enough. I think that you don't have to really worry about whether you're doing enough until you reach a point where you're not progressing. And then the question is, am I not progressing because I'm not doing enough? Or am I not progressing because I'm doing too much?
So what are you looking for, like progression wise? Like, what are you looking for to progress in?
Anything, reps, load. Whatever your goal of your training cycle is under your program. So like in our programs, right, at Paragon, we take an increasing effort approach, which I really, really love because we'll essentially start a block of training, a 6-week block at an easier effort. And then we'll ramp efforts up over the course of the 6-week block so that at the end, by week 5 or week 6, we're at the hardest effort that we can give. If those efforts that we're giving in week 5 or week 6 are the highest load and reps of the cycle, then that is progression. Then we've worked our way to kind of where we want to be. If we get to the end of that cycle and we're no longer moving forward with our movements and our reps and our load and things like that, then now we kind of need to look back and reflect. And it could be training volume. It could be too much training volume. It could be too little training volume. It could be that you're not sleeping well. It could be that you're not eating well. It could be stress in your life. There's so many factors that this is where, the individual really needs to be understood.